Welcome to Mysteries in Crime. I'm your host, Melissa Thompson. Today, we're talking about the Gabby Petito case and the fact that yesterday, Cassie and her husband came out due to the protesters bothering them, the neighborhood, and especially their children. So, there's a lot of things going on in this case. And again, I've been sitting in the background a lot, observing, watching all the little nuances, the discrepancies, and we have a lot to talk about here. That interview was quite telling, okay? But however, I do have to say, I'm not totally behind everybody protesting in the neighborhoods, especially where there's children around. That's very, very triggering to children, talking about the subject matter. And I really do feel for the neighbors. I do feel for the children. But on the other hand, they did get Cassie to come out and talk. And the more we know, the more we can find out possibly where Brian is. So let's get into some of the things Cassie was talking about. Okay, she did confirm that Brian came to her house September 1st, okay? But apparently he didn't show up in the van like what was told out in the media. He showed up with his parents in the Mustang, which is quite telling in a lot of ways because for some reason I think that the parents and Brian were trying to set up an alibi with Cassie and the fact that maybe he flew back home again, because we did find out that was definitely true with the lawyer Bertolini. He said that Brian flew home from the 17th and he didn't come back to meet Gabby until the 23rd. So we found out that. That was confirmed by the parents' lawyer. Okay? So, they planned to go to see Cassie. But what doesn't make sense in that scenario is if he was coming back into Florida, Cassie's home is north, 45 minutes north of Brian's parents' home. So, if he did come home that day, why wouldn't he have stopped off at his sister's home? But no, he had to have gone home first because we know he brought the van back home. So, I think a lot of this situation was definitely cooked up. He's a manipulator. The parents are manipulators. Manipulators raise a manipulator. And I'm starting to see Brian is the golden child in the family. He's definitely seems to be more favored by the parents because otherwise the parents wouldn't jeopardize their relationship with Cassie and their grandchildren. What they're doing is deplorable. How they are treating the Cassie's family. That's horrible. You have grandchildren and you're willing to risk the relationship you have with them in order to cover for your son who's possibly a murderer? I mean, really? So that was confirmed. And then we find out Cassie did go to the campground on September 6th. And there was pictures put out this morning on Good Morning America that Cassie showed of her on that day of her boys at the campground with their Uncle Brian. Now, this also seems like a plan cooked up by the parents and Brian to spend some quality time with Cassie before he went out on the run. I definitely believe that these parents knew quite a lot, and I'm starting to think that they knew things prior to September 1st. I think they knew that there was problems going on in that relationship. How could they not? This didn't just start overnight, you guys. we know Gabby left that home to go stay with her friend on several occasions because of the relationship dynamics between her and Brian. There was abuse by Brian to Gabby. That girl was put through the ringer. And I think that the parents were enabling Brian. They stuck up for him every which way to Sunday. They didn't care about Gabby. I don't even totally believe that Cassie cares as much as she says she does about Gabby. Because if this was me and my brother came home without his fiance, I would have been asking a ton of questions, and I don't let things go. I would have wanted to know, well, where's Gabby? Did you fly home again to do some more things? Like, what's going on? Like, where's my future sister-in-law? I don't believe all of what Cassie is selling here, okay? She's saying that on that day, September 6th, that she went to the campgrounds, that they didn't talk about Gabby at all. She also says this about September 1st. The parents show up with Brian to surprise the kids, and they don't talk about Gabby. Gabby and Brian were supposed to be on the road until Halloween, till the end of October, and then they were coming home. And supposedly he flew out on September 17th back home to close out the storage locker that Cassie says it's a storage locker. I don't know if that's true or not. That he flew back home. He spent the money on a plane ticket to close out the storage facility to save money, but yet they spent money on the ticket. I'm wondering if his parents actually paid for the ticket. I'm wondering if they were actually in communication that there were problems going on during this road trip. I'm sure Brian had some kind of conversation with his parents about the August 12th incident, which, you guys, that still makes me really, really angry how those police officers treated Gabby and that Brian was their BFF. I'm really glad that they're looking into that situation. So now, there was something else brought up in Cassie's interview with the protesters. She's claiming that she did not know that Brian came home with the van on September 1st, but she found out the next day, which would have been September 2nd, like everyone else. Who's everyone else, Cassie? Because the only people that would have known about that was the Petito and Schmidt family, and Gabby wasn't reported missing until September 11th. So who told you about the van if you supposedly didn't see them on September 2nd and nothing was in the news and there was no police report put out at that time? So that was interesting. Cassie also comes out and says that, yes, the protesters are disturbing everybody. I actually agree with her about that. I think that it's very bad to do in a neighborhood where there's children. I said that. Though it's our constitutional right to protest, whether they should or shouldn't, I don't think they should. I don't think that those parents are going to break. Cassie came out, but those parents are never going to come out. They are more willing to hold out than Cassie is. This is eating Cassie away, but I'm telling you, I don't buy everything she's selling here. She was raised by these same people as Brian, okay? Though I do believe Brian was the younger child, he's the golden child, he's more spoiled than Cassie. Cassie talked about that she was in a DV relationship, and if she knew that her brother was doing stuff like that, she would have done something, and her husband would have done something. She said that she came out because the protesters were making her children cry. Yet the husband said in that interview that we can't even hear you inside. So which is it? Do you hear the protesters or do you not? Because I think she wanted to come out and talk. And part of me wonders if that was cooked up a while ago with the parents. You know, I'm sure the FBI is monitoring her phones, the parents' phones. So I'm sure she isn't talking to her parents right now. And how her parents could choose one child over the other is beyond me, especially that Cassie has 2 sons of her own. These parents are horrible people. I absolutely agree with John Walsh. They are the dirty laundries. That they could go out and keep living their life. They don't seem to be worried at all that Brian is missing, okay? They let him go for days, and then all of a sudden on September 17th, they decide to call the police because they were quote-unquote worried about Brian hurting himself. I mean, come on. They gave him quite a head start. And there's other things that I've picked up on, such as that last Instagram post of Gabby's. She did not put that up. That is not the way she writes. She would not have used the fly. That is not in her nature. The fly, if you're religious, in the Bible, it represents evil. I see her, she uses butterflies and stars and happy things. She's artistic, and her art is cheerful and bright and happy. Where if you look at Brian's art, he's got a darkness to him. His art is, in a way, to me, demonic. It's like he's got this whole other persona in him, which is interesting that his favorite book is Fight Club. Because in that movie and in the book, the main character, the narrator, he has 2 personas. It's the narrator and Tyler. So Brian, I believe, he has 2 personas. The one he shows the police, the one he probably shows his parents and the outside world besides the police, and then the one he shows to Gabby. And I think that Gabby's father knew about this side. I think that he was taught this in a way by his parents. I think he was shown how to be a manipulator. But, you know, her friend coming forward, Gabby's friend, saying that Gabby told her he's suffering from insomnia, he's hearing voices. I've also wondered, in my opinion, if he was suffering from some kind of mental illness. Now, something that flares up at this age in young men is schizophrenia. And in schizophrenia, it's very common to hear voices and to not be able to sleep. Now, I'm not diagnosing him. I am not a psychiatrist. I am in the medical field, and I have seen emotionally disturbed people, and I've dealt with schizophrenics before. It's not uncommon for them to be hearing voices. So that's quite telling. It shows in his art that he's fighting some kind of dark side. Now, I also believe when you look at the postcards that Cassie showed in Good Morning America, I've included the pictures in this video. Her writing's very bubbly, like just like the printing of it, and she's always drawing like cute little artsy pictures for the boys. I think that there are postcards there that she did not write. I think Brian wrote 1 or 2 of them. The writing is not the same. It's not the way Gabby writes linguistically. And we all have tells in our writing that shows who's texting, who's writing. She did not write one of them for sure. It was very different than the way Gabby talks, where she's talking about, supposedly it was her, talking about the fat squirrel that, came onto her lap. And I believe that is Brian. And he was setting up alibis that supposedly Gabby was still alive when she wasn't. Because she's hi boys and, telling them where they've been and sharing their travels. He's not open and bubbly like she is. She's a happy person, and he is not. He is suffering from something to the dark side. And whether she had anxiety or not, she did not have that same dark side as Brian was showing. Now, do we think Cassie is covering for her brother? I think she knows more than she's saying. And I understand that there are things that she cannot talk about because the FBI wants to hold as much of the cards close to their vest. They don't want her telling about the credit card, yada yada, where she thinks her brother could have gone, because they are on the hunt looking for him. And I do believe he is alive, and I think she thinks so too. Whether he's mentally well, that's another story. I actually agree with Dog the Bounty Hunter. I don't think that he's well. I think that he needs mental help. And he needs to be held accountable if he truly is the murderer in this situation. So, yes, I do believe some of the things Cassie said. I don't believe all of it. I believe she's very upset about the situation. I believe she's upset that her parents seem to, throw her away, basically, to protect Brian, and that they have a lawyer, and they're not helping their daughter and her family out. The lawyer came out and said that he is not representing Cassie and her family. So the lawyer and her parents are ready to throw her under the bus to protect Brian. And that is really a sad situation. She said she lost her brother, she lost her parents, and she lost her future sister-in-law. That's sad, you guys. Not as sad as what the Petito and Schmidt family are going through. What they have to deal with, that these parents are going about their everyday life, gardening in their backyard, doing whatever, not caring that these people are screaming every single day outside of their house about Gabby. They're not going to break, you guys, unless the FBI gets evidence to break them. So, as much as we liked hearing Cassie talk, was it that helpful? I'm not sure. I mean, we found out that she spent some hours with him on the 1st and on the 6th. I think in a lot of ways that was her parents and Brian having their last goodbyes with Cassie, her husband, and the boys, because they had a plan in motion. And if Brian went on the run and the parents knew he was going on the run, they were not going to be able to talk to Cassie, her husband, and the boys. They knew that because they couldn't let her know that Brian is on the run. Maybe they don't know exactly where he is right now, but I'm sure they have somebody helping him, because I don't believe totally he could survive on his own without some sort of resources. Someone is helping him in some way. And we have to remember, he had quite a head start on him, before the Laundrie parents said anything to police. And yeah, I do think that law enforcement messed up. They should have been watching where he was 24/7, knowing he was a person of interest. So I'm very curious what's going to happen now. Eventually, if Brian is alive, he is going to mess up. And that's when FBI or Dog the Bounty Hunter is going to find him. I'd like to know in the comments below, who do you think is going to find him? Is it going to be law enforcement or is it on Dog? You know, right now, I don't really care who catches them as long as they catch him. Justice for Gabby. My thoughts and prayers go out to the family. If you are enjoying this content, but I know it's sad, but the discussion of the case, please like and subscribe and share this out. I love talking to you guys out in the comments. Some of you guys are so kind. Your words really mean a lot to me, and I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you have a beautiful week. Take care, you guys. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.